Can the foods you eat every day actually change the long-term health of your prostate? It's a question most men are never encouraged to ask, but the science says we absolutely should. Research now shows that by removing a specific group of inflammatory and hormone-disrupting foods, many men can significantly reduce prostate irritation, urinary symptoms, and long-term risk. Some lifestyle studies even suggest measurable improvements in prostate size and symptom severity when diet is corrected. Because these are not harmless foods, these are common, everyday items that actively create an internal environment that promotes tissue growth, cellular stress, and genetic instability inside the prostate. And they do it in two powerful ways, by fueling chronic inflammation and by disrupting hormone balance. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 9 food categories that place the most stress on the prostate, explain the biology behind each one, and show you what to replace them with. This isn't about fear, and it's not about cutting everything you enjoy. It's about choosing foods that support repair instead of driving damage. Let's start with the science, because once you understand what's happening inside the prostate, the food list will make perfect sense. The 2 forces that drive prostate problems. Inside the prostate, 2 biological processes determine whether the tissue stays stable or slowly grows and becomes irritated over time. Those 2 processes are chronic low-grade inflammation, hormonal imbalance, especially involving testosterone and estrogen. Let's break that down in simple terms. How chronic inflammation damages the prostate. Inflammation is supposed to help you heal. But when inflammation becomes constant and low level, it stops being protective and starts becoming destructive. Chronic inflammation increases the presence of inflammatory signaling molecules like TNF-alpha, interleukins such as IL-6 and IL-8. These molecules don't just cause discomfort, they actually act like growth signals for prostate cells. They stimulate both epithelial and stromal cells to divide and multiply. And that process is exactly what leads to benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH. At the same time, inflammation increases oxidative stress. That means more damage to DNA and cellular structures, which raises long-term disease risk. So when inflammation stays active inside the prostate, it becomes a constant trigger for tissue growth and irritation. And diet is one of the strongest drivers of that inflammatory state. How hormone disruption accelerates prostate growth. The prostate is extremely sensitive to hormones. Testosterone inside the prostate is converted into a stronger hormone called DHT, dihydrotestosterone, by an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase. DHT binds tightly to prostate cells and tells them to grow. But diet can influence this system in 2 major ways. First, through insulin and IGF-1 signaling. High insulin and high IGF-1 act as powerful growth signals for prostate tissue. Second, through estrogen balance. As men age, testosterone naturally declines. At the same time, higher body fat increases activity of the aromatase enzyme, which converts testosterone into estrogen. And elevated estrogen is now known to promote prostate tissue growth, especially in the supportive stromal cells. So when hormone balance shifts toward higher estrogen and stronger growth signaling, prostate enlargement accelerates. And again, diet strongly influences both insulin and hormone conversion. Why food becomes a growth signal. Every time you eat, your body receives chemical instructions. Some foods tell your body to repair and stabilize tissue. Others tell it to grow, divide, and store energy. When those growth signals stay elevated for years, the prostate becomes one of the organs that responds the most. That's why the foods you eat daily matter more than occasional treats. And now that you understand the 2 major pathways, inflammation and hormone disruption, let's look at the food categories that activate them the most. Food category number 9, red meat and processed meats. Let's start with one of the most consistently linked foods, red meat and especially processed meat. When meat is cooked at very high temperatures, grilling, frying, broiling, it forms compounds called heterocyclic amines, HCAs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs. These compounds can damage DNA inside prostate cells and promote genetic instability. Processed meats add another layer of risk. Sausages, bacon, hot dogs, and deli meats contain nitrates and nitrites that can convert into nitrosamines in the stomach, compounds known to be carcinogenic. Red meat is also high in heme-iron, which accelerates oxidative stress and inflammatory reactions inside tissues. Together, these effects increase cellular damage and chronic inflammation in the prostate. That doesn't mean you must eliminate meat completely, but replacing frequent red meat meals with fish, poultry, and plant proteins significantly lowers inflammatory burden. Food category number 8, sugar and high glycemic carbohydrates. Now we move to one of the most powerful drivers of prostate growth, sugar and high glycemic carbs. This includes sugary drinks, sweetened juices, white bread, breakfast cereals, refined baked goods. These foods spike blood sugar rapidly. That spike triggers a surge of insulin. Over time, repeated spikes lead to insulin resistance and chronically elevated insulin levels. And insulin is not just a blood sugar hormone. It also acts as a growth signal, and it stimulates IGF-1 production. IGF-1 activates pathways like mTOR that directly promote cellular growth and reduce natural cell death. In prostate tissue, that means more cell survival, more division, and less regulation. So diets that constantly elevate insulin and IGF-1 create a biological environment that favors prostate enlargement and disease progression. This effect is even stronger in men with metabolic syndrome or type 2 diabetes. Reducing sugar and refined carbs is one of the fastest ways to calm growth signaling. Food category number 7, refined grains and processed flour. Refined grains behave almost exactly like sugar inside your body. White bread, white pasta, white rice, crackers, pastries. All of these have had their fiber and nutrient-rich layers removed. What's left is rapidly absorbed starch that quickly turns into glucose in the bloodstream. This triggers the same insulin and IGF-1 surge we talked about earlier. Repeated insulin spikes send constant grow and store signals to prostate tissue, keeping cellular growth pathways active when they should be quiet. At the same time, refined grains provide almost no protective antioxidants or anti-inflammatory compounds to balance those effects. Whole grains, on the other hand, slow glucose absorption and help regulate hormone metabolism through fiber-supported digestion. Switching from refined grains to whole grains reduces insulin signaling and improves hormone clearance, two major wins for prostate stability. Food category number 6, excess dairy, especially whole milk. Dairy is one of the most debated foods when it comes to prostate health. But when researchers look at large population studies, higher intake, especially of whole milk, often correlates with increased prostate risk. Two main mechanisms are involved. First, calcium. While calcium is essential, excessive intake may reduce levels of active vitamin D, a hormone that helps regulate cell growth and has protective effects in prostate tissue. Second, and more importantly, dairy naturally contains growth factors, including IGF-1. Milk is designed to promote rapid growth in calves. Those same growth signals don't simply disappear in humans. Consuming dairy can raise circulating IGF-1 levels, which then activates cellular growth pathways inside the prostate. Whole milk and high-fat dairy products tend to concentrate these growth-promoting signals. This doesn't mean all dairy must be eliminated, but large daily amounts, especially whole milk, may push growth signaling in the wrong direction. Fermented dairy like yogurt and kefir appears to have a different metabolic impact and may be better tolerated. Food category number 5, industrial seed oils and trans fats. Now we move into one of the biggest hidden drivers of inflammation in modern diets. This includes oils such as soybean oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, safflower oil, generic vegetable oil, and partially hydrogenated trans fats. These oils are extremely high in omega-6 fatty acids and very low in omega-3s. In healthy balance, omega-6 and omega-3 fats work together. But the modern Western diet often creates ratios of 10.1 or even 20.1 in favor of omega-6. That imbalance shifts the body toward chronic inflammation. Omega-6 fats are converted into arachidonic acid, which is then used to produce inflammatory compounds like prostaglandins and leukotrienes. These compounds directly intensify tissue irritation and inflammatory signaling inside the prostate, replacing these oils with olive oil, avocado oil, nuts and seeds in whole form. Fatty fish can dramatically reduce inflammatory load throughout the body, including the prostate. This single change alone often lowers systemic inflammation markers. Food category number 4, excess alcohol. Alcohol affects the prostate primarily through hormonal and metabolic disruption. Your liver is responsible for processing hormones, especially clearing excess estrogen from circulation. Heavy or frequent alcohol intake stresses the liver and reduces its ability to regulate hormone levels effectively. That allows estrogen levels to rise relative to testosterone. Alcohol also increases aromatase activity, especially in abdominal fat tissue, converting more testosterone into estrogen. This hormonal shift, lower testosterone, higher estrogen, strongly favors prostate tissue growth. On top of that, Alcohol increases oxidative stress and inflammatory signaling throughout the body. So while an occasional drink is unlikely to cause major issues, regular heavy drinking directly supports both hormonal imbalance and inflammation, the two drivers of prostate enlargement. Reducing alcohol intake helps restore hormone stability and metabolic efficiency. Food category number 3, charred, smoked, and well-done meats. This category isn't about meat itself, it's about how it's cooked. When meat is cooked at very high temperatures, chemical reactions between amino acids, sugars, and creatine form carcinogenic compounds such as heterocyclic amines, HCAs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs. These compounds are highly concentrated in blackened or heavily charred portions of meat. Once consumed, they must be detoxified by the liver. If detoxification is incomplete, these compounds can circulate and bind to DNA in sensitive tissues, including the prostate. That increases mutation risk and promotes long-term disease development. Lower temperature cooking methods, such as baking, steaming, stewing, and poaching, dramatically reduce formation of these compounds. If grilling is used, marinating meat with antioxidant-rich herbs like rosemary, thyme, or garlic and flipping frequently can reduce HCA formation significantly. Avoiding blackened crusts is a simple but powerful protective step. So far, we've covered refined grains that spike insulin and IGF-1, dairy that increases growth signaling, industrial oils that drive inflammation, alcohol that disrupts hormone balance, and charred meats that increase DNA damage risk. But there are still 3 more major categories that worsen prostate symptoms and disease progression. And one of them directly affects nighttime urination and sleep quality. Food category number 2, excess caffeine and bladder irritation. This category may not directly increase prostate size, but it can strongly worsen the most uncomfortable symptoms many men experience. Caffeine acts as both a stimulant and a mild diuretic. It increases urine production and also irritates the bladder and urinary tract. For men who already deal with a weak urine stream, urgency, or frequent nighttime trips to the bathroom, caffeine can intensify all of those sensations. What's important to understand is that caffeine doesn't just increase how much urine your body makes, it can also make the bladder muscle more sensitive and more reactive. That means you may feel the urge to urinate even when the bladder is not actually full. This can lead to more frequent bathroom trips, increased nighttime waking, greater daily discomfort, and more disruption to sleep quality. Sleep itself plays a role in hormone balance and inflammation control, so repeated nighttime waking can quietly worsen the overall situation. For some men, moderate caffeine earlier in the day may be tolerable, but frequent large amounts, especially in the afternoon or evening, often make symptoms noticeably worse. Switching to low caffeine or caffeine-free options later in the day can make a meaningful difference in comfort and sleep. Food category number 1, high-sodium processed foods. This is one of the most overlooked factors in prostate symptom management. High-sodium foods are common in packaged snacks, frozen meals, canned soups, fast food, processed meats. High salt intake increases thirst, which leads to greater fluid intake, especially in the evening. More fluid means more nighttime urination, which is already a challenge for many men with prostate enlargement. But sodium affects more than just fluid volume. High salt intake is also associated with increased inflammatory markers, fluid retention in tissues, activation of hormone systems that regulate blood pressure and fluid balance. Some research suggests that these hormone systems may also influence tissue growth and remodeling in the prostate over time. Processed foods often combine several risk factors at once: high sodium, inflammatory seed oils, and refined carbohydrates, creating a triple metabolic burden. Reducing processed foods and preparing more meals at home using whole ingredients is one of the most effective ways to lower sodium intake without feeling restricted. This single change can improve blood pressure, sleep quality, and urinary comfort at the same time. Putting it all together, the empowered path forward. So now we step back and look at the full picture. Prostate health is shaped by 2 main internal forces: chronic low-grade inflammation and long-term hormone imbalance. The 9 food categories we discussed repeatedly activate these 2 pathways. When those signals are constant, prostate tissue is more likely to grow, swell, and become sensitive. But when those signals are reduced, the body can move towards stability instead of progression. This does not mean perfection is required. It means patterns matter more than single meals. When men gradually reduce refined sugars and high glycemic foods, processed meats, and charred cooking methods, Industrial oils and excess alcohol, excess dairy and refined grains, high sodium and excessive caffeine. They reduce the biological pressure that drives prostate tissue expansion and symptom irritation. And in many cases, men begin to notice improved sleep quality, fewer nighttime bathroom trips, less daily urgency, more consistent energy, better overall metabolic health. This is not about fear. It is about opportunity. Your body continues to respond to better conditions at every age. The prostate is not separate from the rest of your health. It reflects the same metabolic and inflammatory environment that affects your heart, blood sugar, joints, and brain. By improving that environment, you are supporting far more than one organ. No single food causes prostate problems, and no single food solves them, but repeated daily choices shape the signals your body receives. Every meal either increases irritation and growth signals, or it supports balance and repair. Small changes, done consistently, can shift that balance over time. This is not about giving up everything you enjoy. It is about becoming more intentional with the foods that have the strongest biological impact. And that puts real control back in your hands. If this information was helpful to you, stay connected with this channel. We focus on realistic, science-based lifestyle strategies that support healthy aging without extreme routines or complicated plans. And I'd like to ask you, which change feels easiest for you to start with? Reducing sugar? Switching cooking oils? Cutting back on processed foods? Or limiting caffeine later in the day? Share it in the comments. Sometimes the first step begins with a simple decision. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.